I'm hanging out with my friends, and my friend looks at me and is like, dude, look at that guy over there. They're letting that lumberjack, dude. He's going up the ramp right now. What's that? Does that guy work here? Like, what's going on? I'm like, and it was like, I think the first thing he did was just dropped into like a 6-foot Madonna. He just didn't look like anybody else in skateboarding. And he didn't ride like anybody else either. He was Lee Ralph, the powerhouse.
Okay, come from another country, all right. You know, you can't love it as much as us. You can't do it as good as us. Well, Lee Ralph loved it as much as us, and he did it as good as anyone.
He was just in his own space, in his own time era, and he was just going.
I was like, whoa, look at that guy. You know, he's not wearing shoes, man. It's like, Cap, who is that guy? He's like, that's Lee Ralph.
We heard so much about this guy, just had that attitude like, he cares, mate. You know, like.
Somebody new just coming in the scene that nobody's ever heard of, it's like, that's a big deal if somebody's on that level where they're automatically like one of the best guys.
He wasn't drinking, he wasn't doing anything at that time. He was completely clean, just focused on skateboarding.
He made an impression on our scene, you know, skate in anything. Skate barefooted, skate work boots, shoes, whatever you have, just rip it.
Insanely crazy. I mean, he was mainly more known for lip tricks and reverts, but he did frontside ollies over my head at my house. He could do anything on a skateboard.
His skating does the talking. He just gets on there and he works his magic. And that's what it was. To watch him skate and see it live, unreal.
It started long ago, in a land far away. Island people had something to say. Take your brain, put it here. I'll eat that and drink your beer. Part-time animal, full-time cannibal. I'm not crazy, he's insane. Lee Ralph will eat your brain in a bucket or cup. Eat it up. Skull cap salad. Eat it up.
You know, back then you had to show up at the AMS ramp and show up what you got. I mean, there was just word of mouth. There wasn't social media crap that there is now. Nobody's telling you about how rad the dude is. I mean, it was just word of mouth.
Lee Ralph from New Zealand. Got Vision Skateboards today. Let's get him going.
He was super good and aggressive and fearless, and he had a full tech, which was always like a sign of someone a little bit off, you know what I mean, mentally, because they're just coming in hot. They're like not in the presence that you are, you know what I mean, like in the time and space that you are. They're just in their own thing, and he was scary. Like, he really was. Like, if you're on the deck with him and he's skating, and I was like, you know, I was a skinny literally a skinny little teenager. And he was like this massive caveman on the deck with me. Like, he got priority. He got the right of way.
He's already a big guy, but he's doing these technical tricks, and he made it look so easy. He was doing fast plant body jars to switch frontside bonelesses before there was even switch. And so it really revolutionized, you know, our approach to skating contest too. It got into a real technical trick heavy, you know, instead of high flying or heavy duty spinning like me and Tony were doing. You know, I think that there came this other approach to skateboarding that Lee Ralph brought.
The vert thing had become Christian Tony thing. And then it gets like, oh, it's just one guy, and it's all this focus. It's kind of like, I think a lot of people start doing other things. And Lee came, he got us all excited again when him and Schroeder started going off.
Ben Schroeder was there, Fedge was there, Chris Borst was there, but Lee was ripping. He was doing so many things that people hadn't done at the time. Throwing everything in, just really well thought out lines and stuff like that. You know, Chris Borst won, he did a 540. And you know, really as far as who really won that contest, it was Lee. And Lee was not impressed at all that he lost. And I think he smashed his trophy and he flipped the judges off. I mean, it was like, whoa, but yeah, he wasn't happy at all that he lost the contest, and he shouldn't have. I mean, he really shouldn't have, because everything Lee was doing was like very progressive, and so many different tricks.
Lee Ralph, anything to fake, you look at him go! Yeah!
You know, he really did get ripped off there, but it's not taking away from Chris. Chris is a great skateboarder, and he was doing 540s. He was the first hand to do 540s.
I mean, now I have to humbly say that Chris Borst kicked my ass. And he threw down the 5, and I'm too scared to throw down the 5, so that's the only reason I lost. He did a 5. But mate, you watch those rides seriously, like, you know, I don't want to push my own game, but just watch the rides and you tell me what you think. You know what I mean? Like, I was so fucked off, and I am a serious guy when it comes to kicking ass. And back then I was totally straight edge, just had one goal, and this is the goal. There it is. I'm just going to kick everyone's asses. Now I was going to turn pro if I won that comp. Vision said to me, if you win this comp, you go pro. So I win the comp, and the fucking judges give me second.
Steve Douglas talks about it as well. He said, like, you definitely won.
Yes, I'm so glad to hear that.
Kill it, just kill it!
Big part of how I ride and the way that I think about skating, like, it's trick selection, like guys like Neil Blender and that. So I went and lived with Neil. I moved into his house, and you know, it was just incredible to be at his house. And I just want to say on camera that there was Neil and Chris Miller and Jason. We used to all be at Neil's house and hang together, and we'd skate and we'd talk, and we were all straight edge guys, you know. That is a big part of how I ride and the way that I think about skating. Like, it's trick selection, the way Neil is. Like, sure, these guys, some guys are better than you. Handsy, you know they got more tricks than you and that, but then you put your tricks together in a certain way, and all of a sudden you're happier with your ride than theirs. You know, you don't need all that shit they got. You like, I learned that from Neil, you know, like trick selection, class. I remember guys coming up to me, just going, what the fuck, who are you? They didn't even know who I was, a lot of them. Never heard of me. Tony Alva, personally, to my face in Arizona at the Perfect Ramp. He's just sitting watching the whole time. And he goes, dude, you ever want to ride for a real company? Come and ride for me, man. And Lance Mountain is pushing pretty hard for me to be on Dogtown. He loves Dogtown. Draws me that graphic. And then goes, like, and that will be your board, and they'll bring it out tomorrow. I mean, actually, Lance, you know, I have to write for Vision, because they're already on. I'm at $800 a month now as an amateur, and that's a retainer. But when I turn pro, they're offering me way more, and I got 10 grand on my first month pro on Vision, and 10 grand the next month, and 10 grand the next month. Get fucked. We're going to shoot the Gullwing video called Inside Out, you know that one? There was snowing outside the van, there were Joshua trees and that, and I'd never seen that before, so I was sitting there. If Dad said, you can have a board, you come up with a graphic. It was a dream come true, you know. I'm thinking of all these ideas of all kinds of things that I could have on my first board. So I said to Chris Miller, do you reckon you could draw me like a little man who's squashed into a board? And that's all I said, nothing else. So the face and everything, he came up with that face, which I love. The guy from Vision who ended up redrawing it. And he's like, I can make that into a woodcut.
And then he came up with this and he showed me it, and I looked at it and I go, even better. This was everything that I'd been working towards. The right board for the right time.
Sometime in the late 80s, we were doing a Bones Brigade tour of Australia and New Zealand, and Lee joined us for a demo. And we had some doubles things we were doing and whatever, and he asked me if I want to do doubles, and I was like, okay, I could do, I'll do an air over your grind. And then as we were about to drop in, I was like, oh, stay low, because this ramp was small, so like the highest I could go is 5-6 feet. And we go up, we both set up, and I do like a frontside air, I don't know, maybe 5 feet, and he does a 5-0, completely standing straight up, frontside 5-0, and like knocks me out of the air like I'm a gnat. And he just kept going, made it just like, hey, sorry, hey. Like, wasn't even, no remorse, no apology, just like, yeah, well, like it was my fault.
Lindsay Knight. I mean, come on, let's have it straight, man to man. What sort of fucking name's that? Lindsay.